Grasping Nettles is a storytelling game where you're building a world and telling the story of a community over the course of many generations. It's a game written by me that uses this little board called the wheel to sort of guide your play and help you figure out what you want to create on any given turn. The game is easy enough to play that I think I'm just going to play a few turns just to show you how it is. The first thing I need to do is come up with sort of the pitch of a community that I want to focus on. To keep it simple for me, I'm going to expand on a fantasy world that I'm working on for a future game. So I'm going to focus on the community of Ringwald. Ringwald is sort of a utopian city in progress, so they're working on making it so that everybody's needs are met, everybody gets food and housing and all that stuff, but they live in this broader world where that is not always true. You have to create a faction and map it to a playing piece for the first 3 turns of every game of Grasping Nettles, and then after that they'll be moving around the board, landing on all of the other actions of the game. My first faction will be the False Kings. These are people that present as members of an overbearing governing body to diplomats and officials of other cities and nations. I've mapped that to the red piece, which I will now place on the faction space of the board. My next faction is going to be the Carpenters. These are the guys that build stuff. We will be mapping that to the purple piece, which again goes onto the board on the faction space. And for my third faction, I'll make the Wizards. These are delegates of the Wizard College that is off the coast to the west on an island not too far from the city. So that one, of course, will be mapped to my final piece and placed on the faction space of the board. And that's all the setup we have to do to start the game and start building our world and telling our story. One thing you may have noticed is that the faction part of the board has a note card in a portrait orientation, so all of my factions are in portrait. So at an easy glance I can see which type of information on the table is which. So factions will be in portrait, locations in landscape, and then a lot of the other ones are folded in certain ways just to help us visually see what's going on. To take a turn in Grasping Nettles, all you do is roll a 6-sided die and then pick one of the 3 faction pieces and move it that many spaces around the board. I got a 3. I'm going to take the False Kings. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. When you're moving a piece on the board, the rules are pretty simple. You must move orthogonally, so no diagonal business. You must not move counterclockwise, so you can't go backwards around the wheel. And then you must not enter the space you most recently left, so no backtracking. This sort of represents the forward progress of the narrative, of time, whatever you might want to say. So now that the red piece, which of course is the False Kings, has landed on the project, I have to come up with something that the False Kings are working on. Some sort of problem they're trying to solve or a goal they're trying to maintain, and just roughly how they're going to do it. The project I've chosen is that the False Kings are building a throne room where they will meet with foreign diplomats. So as we play, we'll just keep in the back of our mind that this project is ongoing. It may be finished in the future, but for now it's just happening. Something's going on in the background. So I'm going to make a new location for the Carpenters. The location I've come up with is Freshtown, which is the newly constructed area serving as the city's first public housing initiative. So this is kind of how the game is played out. There are all these different actions that you could do that just help you add things to the world through the lens of whatever faction you chose. Eventually, all of the pieces are going to land on the generation space, and when they do that, we'll look at everything we created so far, decide how long of a time skip we're going to do, and just skip forward to the next generation. This really serves as sort of a break point where we can either stop playing and move on with our lives, or come back in a future session or after a little break and just continue on, because a whole new host of ideas will have come up whenever we are moving everything forward through time. And yeah, that is a long form pitch on how to play Grasping Nettles.